What? Man, my double vision is bothering me a lot right now. I wish I didn't have to pay for my vision like everybody else. And I'm still having double vision! The Nintendo DS released into the world in 2004, a whole 7 months after I was. It was a revolutionary handheld for the time, but arguably came out at one of the weirdest times because Nintendo was still riding on the success of the Game Boy Advance that was released 3 years prior. I'm guessing someone at Nintendo just kind of looked at the Game Boy Advance and thought, I need to be able to see Donkey Kong on 2 screens! Nintendo was acting like this was gonna be their third pillar and not replacing the Game Boy Advance. Just like how they said the Switch wasn't gonna replace the 3DS. But look what's happening to the servers for that. Regardless, the DS sold amazingly, and at the time of making this video, it's still the second best selling console of all time. A couple years later, they came out with the DS Lite, which was more the same thing except with better screens and a more sleek and arguably more durable design. Later, in 2009, they came out with the DSi, which just added a camera, an internet browser, a digital shop channel, colors in PictoChat for whatever reason, and they killed Game Boy Advance support. How am I supposed to play Fairly Odd Parents Clash with the Anti-World now? Then in 2010, they were just like, fuck it, and said, let's make this thing bigger, so they made the DSi XL. Later in that same year, they announced the follow-up to the DS, the Nintendo 3DS. Its main gimmick was, you guessed it, 3D. Now it's like Donkey Kong's right in front of me. Now there are multiple iterations of the 3DS, and I'm gonna name them all right now. Nintendo 3DS, Nintendo 3DS XL, new Nintendo 3DS, new Nintendo 3DS XL, Nintendo 2DS, and new 2DS XL. Yeah, so the DS and 3DS lines of systems were popping off left and right, with so many great titles, and are the reasons the Nintendo devs were able to eat after the failure of the Wii U. As I said earlier, this system came out the year I was born, which means both the DS and I are able to legally drink in Canada. So I think it's only right for me to talk about my experience with the systems and games that I played. Starting in 2008, it was Christmas. My sister and I had both received the DS Lite. I was only 4 years old, so the only thing I could really remember is choosing green as my system menu color. The game I got with it was Diego's Dinosaur Rescue, which I talked about in my Christmas video a couple years ago. It's just a basic kids educational game with mini games and screaming.
Say, Myosaurus!
Fuck you, Diego.
Muy bien!
Now before I had a DS, I had my brother's old Game Boy Advance, so I also played quite a few Game Boy Advance games on it when I first got the system. The ones that stood out were Mario Kart Super Circuit, Mario Tennis Power Tour, Dora the Explorer Super Spies, and Spider-Man, based off the Sam Raimi film. Power Tour and Super Circuit I have the same sort of feeling around. I loved them both as a kid, especially the story mode and Power Tour, despite not knowing what was going on with the RPG aspect. Dora the Explorer Super Spies was surprisingly complex for being based off of a preschool show. It's a standard 2D platformer, but it has different gadgets you have to use in order to progress through the levels. The two that stuck out to me were the rocket shoes that help you reach high places and are just cool because you get to be like Astro Boy, but you know, if he was a Hispanic 4-year-old girl. And there's also these glasses that are basically this game's version of the Lens of Truth from Zelda. Spider-Man. It was Spider-Man. It doesn't stand out too much. It was my brother's originally, and all I have to say, it's been in my house longer than I have, and I still haven't beaten it. Now, arguably the biggest game for me on this specific DS was Cooking Mama 2 Dinner with Friends. I don't care what anyone says, this game was peak, and it didn't have cryptocurrencies in it. How am I supposed to do Ponzi schemes now? I don't know what it is about this game. It's just really chilled out. You get to just sit there and make recipes with Mama. Except when her eyes catch on fire. That scared me as a kid. It's also the first game I ever tried a DS download play with, which was really cool that we only needed one copy of the game. Unfortunately, one night in the winter of 2009, I left my DS in my parents' car and it just got really cold to the point where it stopped working, even though these systems were able to survive on the top of Mount Everest.
Michael, don't leave me here. Michael, help me.
Later in 2010, around my 6th birthday, my parents took me to a local game store where I got a used DS along with Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs and SpongeBob Drawn to Life. SpongeBob Drawn to Life was an alright game. It's a 2D platformer, but nothing unique. The appeal of it is that you were able to draw different assets of the game, which I will admit were pretty cool, but other than that, it's nothing to write home about. Cloudy with a Chance Meatballs, I think I blacked it out or some shit, because I could not tell you what the game was like, so we'll just skip past it. There's another huge game I remember playing on here though, one that you wouldn't expect. Guitar Hero Warriors of Rock for the Wii. Now you're probably thinking,
Excuse me?
yup, that's right. Within Guitar Hero Warriors of Rock on the Wii, there were two modes for you to choose from that you could connect your DS to. There were the mini-games, where basically you act as a roadie for whoever's playing the game on the TV, and if you fucked up, then the whole concert would go down.
I'd hate to be that guy who got kicked out of Panic at the Disco because he lost his DS stylus.
The other mode just lets you use the DS to choose what songs you are gonna play, even though the TV already lets you do that. Unfortunately, this DS met its demise on a day way sooner than I expected. All I remember is I was in my room playing on it, then the DS turned off and just never turned back on, and I still don't know why to this day. Fast forward to Christmas 2012, I got another DS Lite, and I'm starting to wonder if my parents were starting to go into debt because of me. I remember looking at this DS one day and just deciding to slap a Scooby-Doo sticker on top of it. This is where I feel I started to experience actual games. My main two that I look back on fondly are Sonic Rush Adventure and Kingdom Hearts 358 Days Over 2. Sonic Rush Adventure, I remember really enjoying, especially with the amount of variety it had with 2D levels that Sonic is known for, combined with the 3D bosses. Now Kingdom Hearts 358 Days, I have a lot more to say about. This game was so good. The story just hits hard with all the things we see Roxas and Xion go through. While I had played Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, though not all the way through at that point, it was very different than any other game I had played before. It took what I thought of as this bright Disney game and touched on these concepts of identity, what it means to be human with emotions, and taught me how you don't know how good you have it until it's gone. Besides the hard-hitting story and concepts, it was also the first game I could really remember going from the big screen into my pocket, and it was just overall really cool to have this Kingdom Hearts game that I could take with me. It had some really interesting features like the panel system to manage your items and abilities, and it's still the only game in the series to this day that had a proper multiplayer mode, and I just really wish that they would bring this feature back in some way, shape, or form. Now, unfortunately, this DS met its demise in a rainstorm when I left it outside. I remember I didn't even notice it was gone because I guess I was busy watching Ben 10 or something. After that, I owned an original DS model, which the only games I remember playing on that were the Club Penguin games. I don't really remember too much about them, but I think that's because the UK police may have come in with their neuralizers and wiped my memory. That DS got a cracked hinge, and while it still kept together for years, it did eventually have its day. Next I got a DSi XL. Now this was in 2014, so it was a few years after the 3DS released, but 11-year-old Ventus's mind was. While it did play the same games I had already owned for years and not really anything new, it was bigger, and I could see the game so much better compared to all the other DS systems I had owned before. Now this is where I think I got to experience the most quality titles. Kingdom Hearts Recoded, New Super Mario Bros., and Mario Party DS. For a bit. Yeah, so I don't exactly remember where I got Mario Party DS, but I remember I really enjoyed bringing it to school and starting up a round of Mario Party with my friends before classes would start. And on my own time, I attempted the campaign, but I could never get past the first boss. So what did I do? I got so pissed with the game that I decided to bring it to school one day, and my friends and I literally destroyed the game. Like, I'm talking Mario Party DS was a convicted criminal, and we were the town village condemning it to death. Kingdom Hearts Recoded kind of holds a weird spot in my brain, because as a kid trying to comprehend the story of these games, it just kind of felt like Kingdom Hearts 1 remixed, which I definitely see why I saw it that way. It was young Sora going to all the Disney worlds we went to in Kingdom Hearts 1 and interacting with those characters. Story-wise, it's pretty dry. Jiminy's journal is empty, so they put it in the computer and it's full of bugs.
Who downloaded free Minecraft from a YouTube ad?
New Super Mario Bros. It's New Super Mario Bros. I loved it. I had played New Super Mario Bros. Wii a few years before that, and I absolutely loved it. But honestly, out of all the New Super Mario Bros. Games, this one sticks out from the rest, and is what I consider to be the best one. Mostly due to the fact this was before the series was ran into the ground. I remember playing a lot of the Mario vs. Luigi mode with my dad, and I wish they would bring back this mode in some way, shape, or form. They've introduced co-op to the series where you can just murder your friends if they are getting in the way, but not without consequences like here. Fortunately, the DSi XL actually had nothing tragic happen to it. I just sold it when I got my next system.
Okay, I am thousands upon thousands of dollars in credit card debt. Something has to go. I'm sorry about this, buddy.
It is now time to talk about the Nintendo 3DS. I did get more of the original line of DS systems, but nothing significant enough to talk about. My first 3DS was the original 3DS XL I got for Christmas of 2014. A month after I got the DSi XL. I do not know how 10-year-old me was able to sell my parents on that one. I should have went on Shark Tank after pulling that. I could have made the next measuring shovel. Now, just to get this out of the way, I had the 3DS XL, 2DS, 3DS, 2DS again, and a couple of years ago I shelled out the money for a 2DS XL. This was also the first camera I ever used to record my YouTube videos, so that's a thing, I guess.
This thing won't even fit on my tripod.
The first game I got with the system was Mario Party Island Tour, which I know isn't the most favored Mario Party game, but hear me out. The actual regular board game mode isn't the best thing, but the Bowser's Tower mode is peak. The mini games in Island Tour are overlooked a lot when it comes to this game, and I think they match the quality of Mario Party DS, so Bowser Tower mode is a great way to enjoy those mini games without letting the party mode hinder your experience, and it gives you a sense of progression, even letting you face off against Bowser at the end of it all. It's not the best game in the Mario Party series, but I'm giving credit where credit is due. Next is Angry Birds Trilogy. That's right, fucking Angry Birds. I don't really have much to say about it besides the fact it's pretty packed with content. Although I remember being disappointed that it didn't have Angry Birds Space, and I still stand by that statement. We have Angry Birds Classic, Angry Birds Seasons, and freaking Angry Birds Rio. Like, why did they choose Angry Birds Rio over Angry Birds Space? It just sticks out so much because Angry Birds Classic is just what it says, classic Angry Birds. Angry Birds Seasons is holiday themed Angry Birds, makes sense. But then Angry Birds Rio, the only thing it has going for it is that it's based off the 2011 movie, and that's it. If they put Angry Birds Space in there, it would have been so cool because it has its own exclusive birds and it takes place in space.
I might as well be NASA's spokesperson.
Later in early 2015, my godfather sent me Kingdom Hearts 3D Dream Drop Distance, and my mind was I mentioned earlier how I thought it was really cool that 358 Days was like a Kingdom Hearts game I could bring with me, but Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance took that to the next level. I mean, look at this game next to Kingdom Hearts 1. Graphically, they are on par with each other. I think out of all the Kingdom Hearts games, it does the best job making sure things don't get dry, with having you switch between characters with the drop mechanic. I remember when I'd get stuck on something as Sora, I'd just switch to Riku. I mean, I know that's not the purpose of the drop mechanic, but it kept my little 10-year-old brain on the game that much more. It also had so many side mechanics, like the Dream Eaters. It's literally Nintendogs and Pokemon. And you literally collect items off the streets to make a fucking monster. What's not to love here? The only complaint I can say that I had with the game, even when I was a kid, is that the semi-boss Young Xehanort is more powerful than the final boss, the armored Ventus Nightmare. Even as a kid, I was able to take down that boss in one go. But other than that, I absolutely adored this game. Arguably, the biggest game on the system for me came in summer of 2016. But before that, I'm going to talk about two other games that I got in 2017. Super Smash Bros. For 3DS and Pokemon. First, Smash 3DS. This was the first Smash Bros. Game I had consistent access to, mostly considering the fact that Brawl was my first Smash game, and our Wii was in our living room where my dad was usually hogging the TV watching Duck Dynasty or something.
It's time for you to go, you stupid ass ducks. I need to get a life.
This game was also the entry in the series where I understood what button combos were in a fighting game, and I actually learned how to play it properly. I played it pretty much every day from 7th to 9th grade and bonded with my friends over it. It's actually the reason why I'm close with one of my best friends, Cody, who's been on the channel a few times, so it holds a special place in my heart. As for Pokemon, I'm going to be combining my experience with X, Alpha Sapphire, and Moon. All three of these games are what got me into Pokemon. Just the adventures across the different regions, the bonds you create with your Pokemon, and switching out my team so I could beat my friends in battle. I still hold a close connection to the franchise to this day, with several Pokemon themed posters around my room, and even a Pikachu Build-A-Bear that I got on my first trip to America by myself the day after I graduated high school. Finally, the last game. This game captivated me in a way I never expected, that being Animal Crossing New Leaf. At the time that I got this game, I had only played a little bit of the series' last entry, City Folk. I had gotten this game only a couple months before the Welcome Amiibo update came out, so by the time the game even got a little dry, I had all this new content thrown at me. I even went out and bought a bunch of Amiibo figures for this game, although they aren't in the best condition, and since I never had a new 3DS, I went and got the NFC reader, which is absolutely useless to me now.
This thing looks like it would tell me if there's a fire in my house.
This game was the first time I convinced multiple of my friends to get into a game that I liked. There's even a skit that me and my friend Radhead made back in the day on his old channel.
Give me bells.
No!
Yeah, house phones don't always make the best mic. Overall, the DS and 3DS were very influential systems of my life. They got me through a lot of hardships as a kid, and while to a lot of people, they may just be a video game system they grew up with. But for me, they were so much more. If it wasn't for these systems, I don't think I'd be into some of the games that I am today. Not to mention I wouldn't have taken up my passion for video making as early as I did. So I have to thank these systems for all of that, because they helped mold who I am today.
I love this little handheld, and I can't wait for the day that the kids that grew up with the Switch get to talk about it the same way that I did with the DS. Now, I know Nintendo isn't the best company in terms of making decisions, but I hope that they continue to captivate kids the same way they did with me. Now, all that being said, I hope the kids that grew up with the 3DS become optometrists because it ruined my eyes.